I don't hate men, but I'm angry at them. And those two things are not the same. And I am so sick of them being conflated. Like literally, when did accountability start to become hatred? Make that make any sense at all? The anger that so many women feel towards men, the caution that so many women have towards men makes sense. It is based on lived experience. And when people call it hatred, it is a ridiculous, incorrect oversimplification. My name is Lisa Sonni. I'm a certified relationship coach. I'm an author, I'm a speaker, and I focus on speaking about male perpetrators of abuse, and I speak to women who have been abused. And obviously, because of this, because I don't flatten this across all genders, which would be absolutely ridiculous, it would be a wild false equivalence that I'm just not willing to make. I get called a misandrist every day. I also get called a feminist every day, but for some reason, a lot of people think that's an insult when it's not. Imagine thinking that calling me a feminist, men and women being equal, should have equal opportunities, is some kind of insult. I hope we can all kind of sit back and realize that this whole modern feminism has ruined everything and ruined women today. Every generation of feminism has had some group saying, this group of feminism is particularly awful. They're ruining things. Damn right we're ruining things because these things only work for men. Obviously, women want things to work for themselves as well. And when we say that men and women should have equal opportunity, it doesn't mean that in every possible way, men and women are equal on every possible front or the same. That's not what this means. It's actually maddening. But I don't want to get off the point. Why are women so angry at men? We kind of can't have this conversation without first just doing something really basic like defining misandry. Now, misandry is the prejudice or hatred of men on the basis of the fact that they're men and nothing else. But prejudice is not based on experience. Women are speaking from experience with these patterns of behavior from men, where they have been in relationships with men, gone to work with men, have fathers, brothers, been out in public and interacted with men in a million different ways. This is really just awareness. To call it misandry is just crazy making to me. You know, misandry is just as bad as misogyny. Are you crazy? There's a quote that I absolutely love. I first heard it from Drew Afualo, and she said, misandry isn't real. And if it is, it's a response to misogyny. And I was like, man, I've never heard anything more perfect than that. That is the exact definition that I would use. What is actually being called misandry is women's response to the way men have treated women forever. So it's not random hatred at all. It's pattern recognition, and that makes more sense than anything. We see the same behavior in different men over and over, and then we have a response to that. The response being, I don't like that behavior. I don't really want to be around men. I don't think that X behavior should be happening. And suddenly that's misandry, calling out actual bad behavior from men. Now on my channel, I talk about abusive men. So obviously, I'm not going to be speaking kindly about the men that I'm speaking about because I'm speaking about abusive men. Abuse is bad. Are we all in agreement there? So on a channel devoted specifically to abuse, I don't know what positive things I would ever have to say about this group of men. Now, I would rather choke on broken glass than say not all men. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to soften what I say so that some men can feel like I'm going to separate myself from this group of men because I've made plenty of content on how all men benefit from the systems that we're all living in, right? They benefit from the patriarchy. In fact, men benefit from abusive men because it makes them look better, right? At least I don't beat you. At least I don't cheat on you. Not all men is a ridiculous little, sad little disclaimer that some people use to make it a little bit easier for men who are desperate to distance themselves from this group of men. I'm not doing that. Every single woman that I know has some story about multiple men, not one, right? Not who hurt you. Oh, it was her ex-husband. No, so many men that I don't know a single woman that could actually count. People who throw around the word misandry, like so many of these men that I swear learned the word in 2023 and then they just use it constantly. I can honestly say I have not once ever heard a man use the word misandry in the case of misandry. I have only ever heard men use it completely incorrectly to the point where I'm not sure what they've got going on up here. What hatred would actually look like is systemic harm. It would look like women making laws to help oppress men. It would look like violence. It would look like men being blamed for everything. It would look like men never being believed. That's hatred. Misandry would be like if women were the vast majority of perpetrators of sexual violence against men, and yet only a very small fraction would ever lead to arrest or conviction. That would be a good example of misandry. It would be like if little boys grew up saying, be careful of your own behavior so that women don't hurt you, and then completely blamed when women inevitably do, in fact, hurt them. That would be misandry. Let's talk about anger versus hatred, okay? Anger is, this isn't okay. Hatred is like, you shouldn't exist. Hatred would be, we're going to make laws against you. We're going to violently harm, hurt, harass, abuse you. We're going to commit acts against you, and there's nothing you can do about it. The fact is, the anger that so many women absolutely do feel towards men is righteous. It's justified. It's a response to a lived experience. This is anger that actually comes from recognizing harm, so it makes sense. The anger comes from the fact that we live in a world that just excuses all of this horrible, bad behavior constantly. But this is one of the most interesting things, right? It's the trope of the patriarchy. Women's anger is the problem. Her reaction, my God, women are so emotional. They're emotional about things that make sense to be emotional about. Like imagine being angry that somebody is oppressing you, harming you, abusing you, and creating laws against you. And then the whole problem becomes her anger, her reaction. It's exactly what it's like to be in an abusive relationship, where your anger, your feelings, your reaction become the problem instead of focusing on the perpetrator, instead of focusing on the actual problem. No, we're going to focus on the woman's anger. And when we paint women in this, oh, she's just angry, one of those bitter, angry feminists, she's going to die alone with her cats. I don't even comprehend how men think that that's going to make women like them. Now, for so many men, that's not the point, right? They don't care if women like them, and that's fine. But then don't be upset or play dumb and be confused when women don't like you. I know exactly what these men hate about women's anger. Angry women are really hard to control, and they hate that. Anger becomes the problem because we don't want women to be angry. We want women to be compliant. We want them to be oppressed, take it, shut up and like it like we used to. That's why so many men will say things like, back in my grandfather's day, yeah, your grandmother probably hated your grandfather. She's stuck. She couldn't leave. Who do you think warned us? Who do you think turned us into feminists in the first place? People go on and on about, oh, back in the day. What day was that? When women were financially trapped, when women couldn't leave, when we had no other choices. It's so fascinating to watch women have choices, and the choice that so many women are making is to not be in relationships. And it's funny because when women are like, I'm just not dating, I don't want to do this anymore, men are like, yeah, well, we didn't want you anyway. Okay, you can't fire us. We quit. Okay, have a good day then, sir. Bye-bye. But no, because these men are in the comment sections, pissed off, making angry troll comments. If you really didn't care, you wouldn't be in the comment section typing off your little pissy rants, would you? You would just go live your life. But you want women to know, no, we don't like women like you. Okay, but what's the problem, right? If I don't like you and you don't like me, then we good? We're all set then? Because ironically, just to kind of go back to my not all men point, I've decided to only use that in a really sarcastic way, because when men tell me, oh yeah, men don't like women like you, not all men, not all men. In fact, lots of men love their feminist wives and girlfriends. There's a whole trend on TikTok right now about men saying, get yourself a misandrist. They're the most loyal women you'll ever meet. Why would women settle when we don't have to? It just doesn't make sense. When we call the righteous anger of women misandry, it literally dismisses the entire point, which I realize is their entire point. They don't want to address the pattern in their own behavior, so they just flip it and they make her anger the problem. None of this is irrational, right? This feeling that women have, this caution, this anger, it comes from lived experience, patterns of it over dozens and or hundreds of interactions that women have had with men. I've never seen a man in a boardroom and a woman walks in and says, "Have a seat, sweetheart." Could you imagine if a woman said that to a man? Well, I don't have to imagine because that's been said to me. That's been said to my coworkers. I remember having senior vice presidents flown in from other parts of the company to come in, saw two blonde women in the boardroom and went, "Oh, look, blondies." Who says that? That's the kind of subtle misogyny that just exists. They're immediately reduced down to nothing but their hair color. Women are not crazy for being angry and cautious of men. It is logical. It is rational to feel this way. Caution is not the same thing as fear, and anger is not the same thing as hatred. Wake up, people. The truth is, it's not misandry when we say, I see the behavior, I see the pattern, and I don't want to participate in this. I don't want to give oxygen to these pissed off, angry, hateful misogynists. And none of what I just said is misandry. If you think that this video is an example of misandry, man, oh man, you do not have critical thinking skills at all. When women choose to opt out of relationships, they're just withdrawing access to themselves. Now, men are pissed off about that because they believe that they're entitled to access no matter how they treat you. If that's not an example of misogyny, if when you withdraw access, that feels like hate to them, it's because they benefited from your tolerance. So I want you to ask yourself, why stay in something where this is what it feels like? Why stay in anything where this just continues to happen? So many women are in relationships with men who criticize women, call out feminism, call everything misandry, don't even understand simple words. Women really need to take a hard look at the men in their lives and really do a little bit of a cut and see who should actually be in your life. Why do we want misogynistic men around us? Narrowing the amount of men that have access to you is a smart move. Being angry at men, it's just not misandry. Tell me what your experience has been being called a feminist or bitter or old or a cat lady or whatever else. Anytime you've been called a misandrist. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe so you don't miss more content like this, because on this channel, we talk about abusive relationships, toxic relationships, exposing male perpetrators of abuse and their tactics, and I help women exit and rebuild after abusive relationships.